I'm gonna tell you a story. A long time ago, I wanted to make a game. This was before I actually understood how hard this game would be to make. I wanted to make a game where you could chop down trees, where you could build a house, where you could fire an energy bolt from your hand, like Son Goku in Dragon Ball, and blow a hole through a mountain. And then you'd have angry dwarves come out at you, shouting and swearing because you just destroyed their living room. A game where you could dig through the center of the earth and follow the other side, basically. And you're probably thinking, hey, that's Minecraft. Well, no, mine had a story, had the characters, had better graphics, though it was basically 2D at the time. But in essence, it was exactly what EverQuest Next promised to be. At the time, I didn't know it, but at the time I was dreaming of a game that would one day save the MMO genre. Because that's what EverQuest Next was going to do. Save it. Give it new life. Show us a new path to walk upon and bathe in endless possibilities unfolding before us. And it got cancelled. So ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for the MMO. Because the MMO genre is now dead. And you're probably saying to yourself, well, how can the MMO genre be dead? They just released a Division, then Black Desert Online, and there was that Elder Scrolls thing, and some other stuff's gonna come up, which is gonna be a constant grind fest where you just kill random mobs for loot that will let you kill other random mobs for more loot that just repeats the process in an endless loop. And there's crafting where you can spend hours upon hours taking apart weapons or gathering resources to craft basically nothing all that useful. Now, there's still some hope from the MMOs, basically from the more low budget indie side. A while ago I was playing Mortal Online when it was still in beta. It had a really neat concept. The player base was basically cancer back then. I hope they have stopped playing, because with those kind of people that take criticism such as, isn't it a bit weird that you have to kill so many foxes to get one bow? And understand it as, this man has stepped upon our land, this is now threatening our livelihood, we must slay him and feed him to the ancient gods. And then proceed to basically swear at you for about 3-4 pages. But that's enough about that game. EverQuest Next. For those who don't know, EverQuest made the current MMO genre. World of Warcraft exists because of EverQuest. And if you're one of those people that, oh my god, how can it be possible? World of Warcraft invented MMOs. World of Warcraft invented gaming. I'm 12. I'm not gonna tell you to stop watching. I'm gonna tell you to try to understand that the world is big and old and scary and filled with monsters. Sacred monsters with interfaces that weren't that well made, graphics that, well, now make you hurl, but defined concepts that we all see in every other game. And EverQuest defined the theme park MMO, the MMO where you visit an NPC, get a quest, do something, go back to that NPC, and just explore the world, the story, and so forth. This was different from what something like Ultima Online did, because that's a game where the player drove more of the content. It had crafting on a level which, again, back to crafting, what you get in most games today as crafting is crap. It's busy work made so people with really low, how shall I put this? At some level, we all have some OCD, some urge to complete things, and most crafting systems in current games are that. Well, Ubisoft has based every game it's ever made in the past 10 years on just that. Ultima Online had crafting where you could make your own house, and the furniture in it, where you could just be someone that makes furniture for other people. That was the way you could play the game and progress through it. That's what made it special. EverQuest Next wasn't gonna be that. No. EverQuest Next took another idea from Ultima Online, one that was scrapped a long time ago. Ultima Online was supposed to have an ecosystem that worked. Namely, if you were to kill every deer in the game or in a certain area, then the wolves in that area, if wolves eat deer, I'm not sure. I've only seen one deer and it ran away from me before I could eat it. Then the wolves would die. They would go away. They wouldn't be there anymore. They removed that because at the time, players would just kill everything, so it wasn't a good idea. But EverQuest Next was going to be a lot bigger than Ultima Online in terms of sheer size, and it could afford to have such systems, but not just apply to wild animals, no, apply to the mobs. The random mobs you keep killing in every game, where we just spawn camp them basically. They would be there with a point, with a role, with a purpose. For example, why are there bandits in these woods? Well, if you were to take a game like the recent, well, all of them, none. That's just where the designer decided they live, in the woods, standing there, not robbing anyone because they're in the woods. Well, in EverQuest Next, the bandits would be in a wood that's close to a road visited by wealthy merchants, and they would rob them. Those merchants then would try and hire guards, be they NPC or players. It was the player's job to make sure they got through that area. But if the players didn't give a crap about it, then those merchants would get robbed, and then they just bugger off to someplace else, and so would the thieves, because they didn't have any reason to stay there. It was also a game where you could build cities, and you're probably thinking, hey, you can basically do that in Worlds of Draenor because you have that encampment which you can build. And no, I played Warlords of Draenor. It was the saddest experience I've had since, well, basically any other MMO. To understand me, you have to realize the following thing. For about 2 to 3 years, I made a weekly show where I played just about every free MMO made. My tolerance for crap is somewhere below the ground. So what to some may appear as, hey, this is a neat new gameplay element, to me it's more busy work that has no actual purpose other than building it. Sure, it gave you a few things like summon a horde for you every minute. That does basically nothing, but again, not a fan of Worlds of Draenor. Liked the story, loved it to death before I started playing it, and just hearing that every line was for honor, by honor, my honor, you have no honor, must redeem honor, and just, good God, Blizzard, get better writers, please. But again, back to EverQuest Next. I keep diverging from the subject because it affects the MMO genre in its entirety. This was a game that had you, again, build settlements, build cities. You were supposed to collaborate with everyone on the server to build a city, to move the frontier forward into the unknown, sort of like what Elite Dangerous has with its stations that can be built by players, well, can be built with the help of players. It was a game that rewarded exploration in new and interesting ways because you could dig a hole straight down and maybe find an ancient civilization filled with interesting things. It was layered, it was a beautiful design. Well, graphically it had horrible World of Warcraft stylings, which are kind of crap honestly, because were you to compare the original artworks, the original poster for EverQuest with this one, yeah, they don't match. They don't gel in any way, shape or form. It was basically horrid. But this game had ideas, it had vision, it had actual technology that worked. The tech that was supposed to power EverQuest Next works. It's proven to work in EverQuest Landmark. But still they cancelled it because, as they put it, the game wasn't fun. Now, as much as I appreciate them not wanting to sully or profane the idea of what this game would have been with an imperfect representation of it, an end product that wasn't good, I have one small rebuttal. Most MMOs aren't fun. The only time I've had fun in an MMO was either in the Secret World, because that game has very non-MMO elements in it, like the quests, which are basically adventure games, or when I was playing with friends and doing stupid stuff, the kind of stuff which basically didn't revolve around the game itself, mostly around us doing stupid stuff and the game just being there. Having fun in an MMO isn't really necessary. Sure, it would help, and honestly, being able to dig to the center of the earth and just live live there like some kind of crazy hermit living underground that keeps complaining to people that games today aren't that good, yeah, I could actually see myself having fun. But they cancelled it. Daybreak Games cancelled it. And that really saddens me, both because this was the last big MMO that actually had some ideas in it, some vision, some sort of design consistency in its world. Compare it to The Division. It's a game where black people come at you with bats and you shoot them in the face for the first hour of the game. No, really. Check exactly what's under that hoodie every time you kill someone in the first parts of the game, the ones from the beta test. Mostly black people. Now, I'm not saying racism, but Ubisoft, you've done this before. I mean, yes, you've published another game that did exactly this and even gave you an achievement. That was the last non-Western Call of Juarez game. But also, The Division makes no sense whatsoever. From what I've played it, from what I've been told of it by other people that have played it more than me, it makes no sense. Because that's just how MMOs are made today. They're made to have no sense whatsoever. They're just here, grind this for 50 hours to get one piece of equipment that will make you really badass and will be totally invalid upon the next update. And that's it. There's no magic to it. There's no innovation to it. There's no drive there. I was kinda hoping that Guild Wars 2 would improve a lot more upon the core idea of the MMO. It kinda didn't. It's a fine game. I was bored to tears playing with the Ranger, but the Elementalist was amazing. The PvP was astonishing because I got to chase people around as a tornado. But the whole dynamic world thing, yeah, didn't really work because they just repeated the same core loop of events over and over again with no actual change. EverQuest Next had change, permanent change. Every other game now is just rehashing the same idea that Tabula Rasa had, and honestly did better, because Tabula Rasa, when you actually failed to stop an enemy invasion, they would capture a town, and they would keep it until you got in there and killed everyone and saved the hostages, which, well, I think they're clones because they kinda got shot a lot. Can't remember if they took damage, but they got shot a lot, mostly by me because some of them were annoying. Speaking of Tabula Rasa, it's been 7 years since the last battle in Empire Crater. A shout out to everyone that was on the Centaur server at that time. That kind of event, that world-ending kind of event, that was something possible in EverQuest Next because the world could be manipulated in that way. It could be changed permanently. It could be modified, altered, because you could wipe out an entire city from the map because it wasn't a theme park. There were no critical quests vital to the story that took place there, and because you destroyed the city, you couldn't progress the story anymore. No! It was an evolution of a sandbox, because currently sandbox games are just lacking in plot, lacking in structure, lacking in everything, and you just go around killing people and crafting. Crafting mostly crap. EverQuest Next was a dream. The impossible dream. Only it was actually possible. The technology is there. I've seen it. I've played EverQuest Landmark. It works. It exists. It could be a game, but they decided not to because it wasn't fun. And now, if you please, put on your tinfoil hats. I'm gonna go conspirative on you. Daybreak Games LLC was, up until last year, Sony Online Entertainment. It was sold to an investment company which probably doesn't like EverQuest Next. It's a big project, requires money, and while they've managed to turn a profit on H1Z1 and I think EverQuest Landmark 2, it's still a sizable game. And well, Smed's not there anymore. John Smedley, he was the CEO of the studio since I think forever. He was the kind of man that, how shall I put it, got some well-deserved crap for screwing up basically Star Wars Galaxies, which was another game full of innovation where you could again build your own towns. It had a political system where the players could participate, which they first screwed up because they wanted to be World of Warcraft and failed miserably, just angering every player in the game, and then screwed up because Lucas called and said, hey, shut this down, the Old Republic is gonna come online soon, we want to back that horse. Well, Smed understood that you can't pull that sort of crap on players anymore, so I assumed that he may have been a supporter of EverQuest Next, but since he left and there was that whole hacking scandal and the bomb threat which he received on a plane, and well, maybe without him there was no one to stand up for the game to the owner of the company. Because again, they've been working on this for a while, the technology is there, it just could have gone early access with it, and hey, we'll take it from there, we know. We've been eating shit in early access from a lot of games for a long time. At least this one had potential. What I hope is that at least the base building aspect will be added to PlanetSide 2 soon, which I look forward to playing again on this computer, which actually can run it at over 30 frames a second or more than 5 seconds at a time. And I'm also kinda sad again because this isn't the first MMO which Daybreak has cancelled in the past few years. Back when they were SOE, they were working on a game called The Agency, which was basically sort of Get Smart mixed with Archer. I don't think Archer was around back then though. Set in an MMO. You had sneaking, you had first-person combat, which was designed by some people that left Infinity Ward. You had gadgets, you had exploding teddy bears. Yes, it was a theme park, but man, did I love that kind of theme. That's a very important aspect of theme parks. Is the theme actually good? Actually interesting, or are you just making World of Warcraft? Well, you're remaking EverQuest for the billionth time because you are a creatively bankrupt person, company, or semi-evil entity, otherwise known as a publisher. And while EverQuest Next would have still been fantasy that sort of looked like WoW but still was in the EverQuest lore or rebooted lore, it was unique, it was something new. Whereas currently we get theme park MMOs that are, well, Ubisoft basically made a 9/11 theme park MMO with all that tragedy porn and misery porn littered all about, with all those walls commemorating people that have fallen and died in this virtual game where nothing makes sense, that just steals, that devalues, that tries to emulate a tragedy, an actual tragedy where people died in horrific ways, and it does nothing with it, it just have it there as a thing that exists. Like, look, you've seen this tragedy before, feel it again. There's your pathos for you. We don't need to make a world where things actually make sense, where you're not some murdering lunatic that wants to kill everyone because they see them looting a corpse and then you're gonna loot the corpse too and their corpse too. But hey, people, heroes, something, I don't know, here's a flag on a wall with pictures, grieve over it. That's tragedy porn in games. It sucked in Crysis 2, it sucks here too. And trust me at this because I know what it means. I come from a country that's just filled with tragedy porn. I mean, just about every movie director that wins at Cannes usually makes a movie about how horribly depressing it was under communism or now. That's it. That's all my country exports. Well, that and guns, but that was the president's brother, so it's okay if he does it. So what I'm getting at is, EverQuest Next being cancelled isn't mediocre. It's not even just mediocre. I wish it was just mediocre, because it's downright depressing. If you enjoyed this show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Or, if you thought it was horrible, then share it with your enemies and make them suffer. We shall be your weapon of vengeance. But if you liked what you saw, you could, I don't know, maybe donate, because basically YouTube is horrible at revenue, by using the link in the description, or just buy my book. It's a fantasy book about, well, a lot of stuff. I guarantee it won't suck, and if it does suck, you can find me here and complain about it.